the Ukrainian army is engaged in a do-or-die battle on the front lines. The Russian army remains dominant in the trenches. Despite Ukraine's successful incursion into Russia's southwestern region of Kursk, Vladimir Putin's forces remain in control of large parts of Ukrainian territory. Ukraine's F-16s are yet to turn the tide for Volodymyr Zelensky. Kyiv does not have the permission to use Western-made weapons to full effect. Zelensky is waiting to use long-range weapons to strike inside Russia. The United States, Germany and the United Kingdom are yet to give the final go-ahead. And Putin is using this to his advantage. Ukraine's incursion into Kursk has dragged on for over a month. Zelensky's troops still control almost 1,200 square kilometers of Russian territory. Ukraine still controls at least 4 major townships in Kursk, including the nuclear power plant town of Sudza. While slow to respond, Russia has made counter-gains, particularly on the western flank of the Ukrainian offensive. However, apart from the success in Kursk, thanks to a surprise offensive, Kyiv is not seeing much improvement elsewhere. Russia continues to occupy most of eastern Ukraine, and Putin's troops have captured even more land in the Donbass. Both Ukraine and Russia refuse to negotiate a truce and are playing a match of who can grab more land.
There is a very significant point. TCSkush, we have not conducted, are not conducting, and will not conduct any negotiations with terrorists. They are just that because the desire to carry out nuclear terror in relation to the Kursk nuclear power station is nothing but a high level of terrorism, I would say. That is, the desire, the intention was to move there and take over the nuclear station. Fortunately, this did not succeed. And until we throw them out of our territory, we naturally will not talk about any negotiations with them.
The battlefield remains a meat grinder. Zelensky is desperate for a nod from NATO to strike deep inside Russia. Putin has warned the West against giving that approval.
If this decision is made, it will mean nothing less than the direct participation of NATO countries, the United States, and European countries in the war in Ukraine. This is their direct participation, and this, of course, significantly changes the very essence, the very nature of the conflict. This will mean that NATO countries, the United States, and European countries are fighting Russia. And if this is so, then, bearing in mind the change in the very essence of this conflict, we will make appropriate decisions based on the threats that will be created for us.
With an eye on NATO, Putin decided to flex his military muscle as he launched the largest naval drills since the collapse of the Soviet Union. On the 10th of September, Russia launched its largest naval drill in decades. Putin mobilized all the 5 fleets, and joining the Russian forces were their biggest ally, China. During the Cold War, Ocean was the code name of the largest exercise conducted by the Soviet Navy in the 1970s and the 1980s. Drawing from the historic tradition, Putin launched Ocean 2024 in a direct challenge to NATO. Russian and Chinese ships were deployed in the Pacific and Arctic Oceans. Similar deployments were also carried out in the Mediterranean, Caspian and Baltic Seas. Ocean 2024 saw the participation of at least 400 battleships, including submarines, destroyers and frigates. Over 130 aircraft also took part in the exercise. More than 90,000 personnel were involved in the week-long drills. Russian and Chinese forces practiced anti-submarine warfare. enemy aircraft interceptions, and live-fire drills involving a range of weapons, spanning from small arms to tactical nuclear missiles. Putin said the drills involving China were a message to the United States and NATO that the Western nations cannot sleep on Russia and China.
We see that the United States of America are trying to maintain their global military and political dominance at any cost. To this end, using Ukraine, they are trying to inflict a strategic defeat on our country. Under the pretext of countering the allegedly existing Russian threat and containing the People's Republic of China, the United States and their satellites are increasing their military presence near Russia's western borders, in the Arctic and in the Asia-Pacific region. In fact, the U.S. are provoking an arms race, disregarding the security of their European and Asian allies, creating the preconditions for a dangerous crisis situation in Europe and the Asia-Pacific region.
During Ocean 2024, the United States and the United Kingdom sent their top diplomats to Ukraine. Antony Blinken and David Lammy met Zelensky in Kyiv, and they pledged more support for Ukraine.
Thank you very, very much, and it's always so good to see you and to see all of our colleagues. I'm delighted particularly to be here with David. The United States, the United Kingdom, united for Ukraine. And not just our two countries, dozens of other countries that continue to support Ukraine's success, Ukraine's victory.
This is the first time in well over a decade that a Secretary of State from the US and a Foreign Secretary in the UK have traveled together, and that is to reiterate our complete support for the Ukrainian struggle.
Following their visit, Putin decided to increase the heat. 4 Russian ships were ordered to leave the designated exercise area in the North Sea and pass through the English Channel. Russia also flew 2 strategic bombers over the English Channel airspace. In response, the UK deployed the HMS Iron Duke and the HMS Tyne to shadow the Russian warships. Britain also scrambled its Eurofighter Typhoons to chase away the Russian bombers. Following this brief chase, the UK's Foreign Secretary pledged 100 years of support to Ukraine, drawing a stern response from the Kremlin. Putin's ally and former President Dmitry Medvedev threatened to sink the tiny island of Britain. Medvedev added that Russia's hypersonic missiles would get the job done really fast. And Putin doubled down. He threatened to take the fighting to the open seas.
Russia must be prepared for any development of the situation, and our armed forces must ensure reliable protection of the sovereignty and national interests of Russia, repel possible military aggression in any direction, including in the ocean and sea zone. The Navy plays a key role in solving this problem.
Throughout Ocean 2024, China remained a participant in the drills. Despite their small contingent, Beijing had Moscow's back. With Russia supporting China's territorial claims in the South China Sea, Xi Jinping is supporting Putin in taking the West head-on.